Hello everyone and welcome back. It is Beginner's Java, lesson number 10. Today we are going to be going over the number one most requested and most often assigned homework assignment question in all of coding. Wait, how the hell did that happen? Okay. So somehow my screen got off center. Sorry about that. So what we're going to talk about today is nested loops. And the homework assignment that basically everybody in the entire coding world gets at some point looks something like this. It's use nested loops to create the following. Or some variation of that, right? Like, I've seen some where you have this in the middle, where you have two in the middle. I've had some where they say, allow the user to determine how large it is, whatever. You can do it in a variety of ways. I'll do it so that we can allow the user to determine how large it is, but like this is something that's been assigned. I've done this on my other channel, and every couple weeks I get a comment from someone, "Thank you, this was my final for CS 101 or whatever it is." So you'll see this if you ever decide to go to college for comp sci. But in the real world, nested loops have a bit more of a reason to exist. So the first thing we know is that we need to have an array, right? Not an array, of a loop of some sort, right? We can tell that this is counting up. So what we need to do here is two things. So number one, we need to create a couple of different integers. So I'll create int I equals 0, comma j equals 0. So you can create multiple integers or multiple of anything at the same time just by using a comma in between, as long as you're planning on doing the same type. Actually, I think that both of these should be 1, realistically. So because we know we have to output 1. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make a for loop, right? And I'm going to pretend that I don't already know the solution to this, and I haven't had to do this about 100 times. But let's say we wanted to do something like this, less than equal to 5, I plus plus. So if we were to just do that, I don't need the int there because I already declared it. So if I say system.out.println I, let's see what we get. Okay. So when we do this, we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not really what we want, is it? So we are getting one thing. So we're getting the right number of actually, let's do that. So when we do it this way, we're getting the correct number of columns, right? So we're getting 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we output 5 numbers here. The problem is we're just not counting up. So that means that this structure is right, but what's inside is wrong. And so just to do the same thing on the way down, since we know we need to do the same thing on the way down, we'll do I. So since I ends at 5 over there, we're going to start over here with the same thing. So we'll say I is greater than 0, I minus minus, and we'll do system.out.println I. So now when we do this, we should get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we can just do I minus minus in the middle, and that'll subtract 1, so we'll start at 5 on the second one. Alternatively, we could cheat and make this a little bit harder on ourselves. Yeah, actually, let's make this a little harder on ourselves and allow for the user to input system.out.println. So for now, what we can see is that when we have a setup like this, we're at least outputting the right amount of numbers. Now, we can argue that I did 5 here only once, so maybe we want to do that. The difference between the two, as you'll see in a moment, actually isn't that huge. But we'll say input a number between 0 and 9, right? Great. So when we do that, we'll then come up here, oops, not into the comment, and declare a scanner scan equals new scanner system.in. And so what we'll do is we'll take a number, we'll call it int number, or int target equals scan.nextInt. Great. And so when we do this, we're going to change this less than or equal to 5 to target. And do the same here. Over here, we'll just do 0, because that's never going to change. Okay, so if we run this, we can actually say something like 8. And so as we can see, it does something a little bit weird now. When it's going up, it's printing a number above, so that's clearly a problem. But overall, we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're seeing 9, and then down looks fine. So it's going 1 above, and the reason it's going 1 above is because it's starting at 1. So when you start at 1, you don't need it to be less than or equal to, just less than. And then on downswing, it should be the same. So let's try 8 again. Cool. And so we have it outputting right. For 8, we'll just throw in another number like 3 and make sure it still looks right, and it does. So, okay. We've now made it so we're outputting the correct number of items, or of columns, but we still don't have it printing out exactly what we want for the rows, right? Because the rows have to increment. And so this is actually a lot easier than you might think, because when you look at it like this, you're like, oh my god, this is crazy. How can you do this? And the answer is super simple. We're going to use a nested loop. So on the way up, we say for j. Actually, I guess we don't even really need to declare j out there. We can just declare j in the loop, because we don't need it again. So we can just say int j equals, I think we start with j equals 1, j is less than or equal to I, j plus plus. I think that's going to give me an off by 1 error, but that's fine. We can fix that. Dot print j. So, okay, if we do this, let's see what we get. And the answer is going to be a pretty big, ugly mess for this first one. But what we'll notice is we do get all the right stuff in one line. We get 1, 1, 2, and then 3. So the 3 is a little bit of an outlier. So a few things, right? It's all on one line. So we don't like that. And this 3 should be 1, 2, 3, so that doesn't seem right. So, okay. What happens if we then throw in a system.out.println in the outer loop? Because we know that, once this inner loop exits, where it prints 1, then 1, 2, then 1, 2, 3, that, we need a space for it to start to look more like this. So if we give this a run, once again, we'll enter 3. See, we're getting a little bit closer. But the problem now is a little more devious. And rather than just spitting out the answer for you guys, what I want to do is debug it. Because right now, to the naked eye, it probably looks a lot like this is printing out 3 from right here. But it's not. And there's 2 different ways you can debug this. There's the long way and the short way. The short way is to do like this. And when we give this a run, now we'll know exactly what's printing what. It won't look pretty, but we can see that J is only printing out 2, and so 3 is coming from down here where there's an I. Now, the kind of correct way of doing this is to put a breakpoint here, debug, and as we're debugging, we'll go ahead and step over, so it prints 1, prints a line, prints 2, and so now it's equal to 2, prints a line. So if we come over here to the console, that looks right. Okay. And so, as you can see, target is equal to 3, I is currently equal to 2, right? But due to a very minor error in our logic, right, we have I is less than target, which is currently true. But the moment we step over this println, it's going to increment I up to 3, and it's going to skip us down to here. So the problem then is that we're not incrementing the correct thing at the correct place, or we're not using the proper condition, right? So in this case, if we then set this to less than or equal to the target, let's see what happens. Okay, so that looks almost right, right? That looks pretty good. So we have the first half of this built. Now we have to think about how to go down. And that's a little bit harder, right? Because you don't have a good understanding of what is currently an I. So you can do something like I minus minus because you know it's going to be 1 greater than what you want. But the answer is actually a little bit easier because you know that this number 3 is equal to the variable target that we made. So if we say I equals target, just like that, and then we copy this logic, just copy paste the whole thing right into this second loop. Boom. And we run this. Actually, we also need the line break. We run this. All of a sudden, that's it. It's done. All set. Now, some teachers will be more of a pain in the butt, and they'll say, "Oh, count down. Have it just kind of be a pyramid and only count down. So, like, get rid of this line." And the way that you can do that is just target -1. And so when you do that, you can just say 6, and there you go. So that's this algorithm. And some teachers will have you do some really weird stuff where they'll say, like, do it like this, and then do, like, you know, and they'll do different things like this, where you have to, like, make different shapes where it's like, you know, and all the way down, right? I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to throw like a ... here, but it's the same. It's the same thing, except in this case, you're using spaces, you know, and so you're just counting the number of spaces. So it becomes really easy once you understand how these nested loops are actually working to output exactly, you know, what's happening in this example. So I'll add some comments in while I still have you guys here, just to sort of recap what we went over. So we allow a user to enter the maximum number. And so this outer loop is the line counter, right? So that's the outer loop is counting basically just up to counter. So it's counting, you know, 6 times at this point. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or actually, I mean, it starts from the first one, counts 6, right? So as it's doing that, there's a second loop on the inside, and that is in charge of counting on each line and outputting the numbers. And then after that, we need a line break in order to, you know, sort of make this shape come to life, you know. Keep the shape growing as we want it to in the outer loop. Now, if you want to be a little bit unique, you can actually move this little piece of logic, right? So you can move this system.out.println if you so choose, and you want to be a little bit fancy. You can say if I equals j system.out.println, and it'll do the same thing. Where now if we say 5, it does the same thing. But I didn't think that you guys needed any more complexity in this by adding an if. So we'll leave that there for now. And the same thing's true here. We start with the value, or the max value target, and we're counting to 0. Now, most teachers don't want you to output 0 in this. Some of them do. So if you have a teacher that wants you to output 0, greater than or equal to 0. And this has to start at 0 as well. But that's not what I've seen most of the time. And so the comments are exactly the same. The outer loop does the same exact thing. It's just that we're counting down and using I minus minus. J++ stays as J++. And lastly, if you have a teacher that wants you to flip it, so maybe it's counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's all just tiny variations of the same thing. So this is probably going to be one of the hardest lessons for you guys to grasp. So if you've made it through and you understand what's going on here, congratulations, kudos to you, give yourself a round of applause. But if you don't despair. this use case isn't what we normally see inside of programming. I just gave this as the use case because it's something that we see so frequently from students who are trying to learn, and they get really stuck on this. So in the next video, I'll be going and using nested loops in a little bit more of a practical kind of way. All right, thanks for joining me, guys. This is Damien. Like, share, subscribe, and have a good one. Peace.